I want to switch gears. Let's go right into the hospital deal because I want to get as much time in here as I can before we have to get out. Brett Truett is in studio right now. Brett, I'll let you do the introductions. Joseph Peter Drennan is a Utica native who no longer lives here, but is enamored by Utica. Would you agree with that?
Yes, that's a good introduction.
Yeah. All right. And Joseph Peter Drennan, good morning. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Greetings from Fredericksburg, Virginia.
My guess is that seeing that you've been set up here to come on the air through Brett, my guess is you are not favorable to the hospital going downtown.
That's an excellent guess.
Okay, so tell us why. What are your? Why do you say? And first of all, credentials on why would you be the voice of reason in this whole debate?
Well, as a lover of the city, I think that gives me some cred. Beyond that, as from the point at which I was just out of school, I got interested in a little lady from New York by the name of Jane Jacobs. I had joined the Book of the Month Club in 1984, and one of the first books that they sent me was Cities and the Wealth of Nations. And I thought to myself, this lady knows a lot about cities.
Yeah.
And I went on to read The Death and Life of Great American Cities, and from that point onward, I saw this lady as a real visionary, and everything that's happening with regard to this hospital that I first heard about 2 years ago is antithetical to what Jane Jacobs stood for and what urban planners around this country and the world, indeed, believe represents responsible urban planning.
And you feel that this would hurt Utica's downtown?
I think it already has.
Yeah.
I think from the moment that the downtown hospital project was announced nearly 2 years ago, it essentially threw a wet blanket on the Lafayette Columbia neighborhood, because would-be developers that would go in there and repurpose old buildings would decide to stay away because there's a cloud over that whole area.
I do have to say, though, the Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi was in yesterday, and he said, and I'll just say what he said, Joseph Peter Drennan, well, where were they all the last 30 or 50 years? The area is in a really rough position right now. And why now, all of a sudden, is there such an interest in developing there?
If I could pipe
in.
Let's let him respond first. So.
Oh, well, I'll yield to Brett on this.
Okay.
Start,
well, so I think the correct reply to that is, where was Utica Coffee 10 years ago?
Right.
Just starting out. And we've seen Taylor and the Cook, now Utica Bread. I've been down in Bag Square, and I've been criticized for taking a long time, but I'm doing it on my own money.
Yeah.
When the master planning review was going on, one woman spoke up, and she was very worried about all this money dropped in people's laps to develop buildings. She goes, back in the day, you fixed up the living room. And when you got that paid off, you fixed up the porch. And I think that's the type of growth we need, and that's what people are embracing.
So by the year 2050, we should be in good shape. That's I hate to say it, but that's the real argument. It is never going to happen if you're wanting this to be organically done.
You have my word that I will see that these buildings are fixed up.
All right.
Can I ask you a question,
all be on me.
The area you just talked about, Utica Coffee,
that's not going
Taylor
down.
and the Cook,
yep.
where your downtown hospital,
sure.
that's not part of this.
No, it's not.
So,
but it's very close to it.
I could totally buy the argument if 4, 5, 6 businesses moved in, made the investment, and then they wanted to bulldoze it for a hospital. You'd say, "Why are you doing this to us now?"
Yeah. There are buildings,
but this area is
that are pieces are falling off them. I mean, Joseph,
and they're owned by the city of Utica. The worst buildings are owned by the city.
Can I weigh in on this?
No, we're not going to allow it. That's the end of it.
Let me tell you something. I understand that the four most blighted buildings in that district are owned by the city of Utica, and the city of Utica has done nothing to rehab them, and has actually declined offers to purchase them, and points to them as being the example of how blighted the area is. I was up there last weekend, and I was very moved by talking with a gentleman by the name of Serini, who runs a printing business there. He took a building that would be considered by anyone to be one of the most blighted buildings in that district, and basically rehabbed it over time with his own money, with his own sweat equity, and he is running a business there today, and that business is basically going to be erased if this hospital goes forward. What about him?
Just to follow up on that, I think I heard some information about this business. He's got like a massive printing unit, right, in his basement or in a.
Well, Joe has, I guess, hundreds of old copiers, fax machines, and printers, and he goes around the Mohawk Valley and fixes printers, copiers. If he has a big, large one, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
at the end of the day, though, the plan here is not 1960s urban renewal, which really did destroy Main Street in so many different places across the country. The plan is to really build something architecturally that is inviting, that actually would represent what Utica is about, not what was done 50 years ago. Joseph.
So the architectural style changes, but the underlying folly of urban renewal remains, because what they want to do is basically take that whole district and where there are 40-some-odd businesses today and make one business, a hospital. And they want to erase streets. They want to block off streets and create super blocks.
I got to tell you, though, not to interrupt.
Listen, it's taken a gamble. It is gambling that this hospital is somehow going to generate growth in the surrounding areas. And that is basically taking a riverboat gamble. I know they want to put a casino downtown, but the casino shouldn't be this hospital.
So the fact is that Utica was a city of 115, 120, close to 120 people. 120,000 people. We now are a city of about 62,000. So it's half the size.
The industrialization.
Correct. I mean, we know why that happened, but we're half the size. The Northeast, the mass exodus coming from New York and the Northeast, we're half the size that we used to be. Wouldn't it be that you fix up this area with a downtown hospital, which allows you to fix up Bleecker Street, which allows you to fill so many different buildings and office spaces on Genesee Street, which is allowing you to fix the Brewery District, to go into West Utica, which is in dire need of assistance. There's so many places that can use help. This hospital in one swoop would eliminate some of the options and allow the money to go somewhere else.
So we should build 5 hospitals.
I agree with the goals.
I like it.
And I disagree with the premise that the hospital is somehow going to advance those goals. In fact, I think that building that massive hospital downtown is going to undermine some of the goals that you have articulated there, not least being West Utica. This hospital is going to isolate further West Utica from the main downtown. And
how is that, though?
West Utica has been isolated because it's going to close streets off.
Yeah, but it's going to, in return, it's actually going to do the opposite. It's going to bring people from West Utica. They will have to come in to Utica
but only if they're sick.
But there's wellness and but it's you got to go see your doctor, and doctors coming downtown.
Right.
It's a crowd of people that currently don't come downtown. In fact, some of the people who don't want the hospital downtown don't want it downtown because they don't want to come downtown. And that would be in complete contrast to what you guys are saying.
But Bill, what we had in the last 10 years happening is people couldn't find Bag Square. I mean, it's a little tricky to get there. And people would say, oh, go downtown. That's scary because that's what's in people's minds. But now you have families, little young girls in boots with mom and dad walking between Utica bread and Utica coffee.
So I guess at this point right now, and I'll ask Joseph this question as I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
Without an influx in jobs, we're just borrowing from Peter to pay Paul here. If we're moving businesses downtown, how many businesses how many businesses are going to grow down there to the point where you say, well, either we're taking from New Hartford or from Whitesboro or from the Valley, or they're not going to survive because we don't have the jobs. I understand Nano's coming, but we need some jobs here in order to support any potential businesses. When Taylor and the Cook opened, it isn't that all of a sudden this newfound element of people just decided to show up into Utica. No, it took from other restaurants. Well, and when the Comets came, it took from other forms of entertainment. And right now we're not growing, and I wonder if if you're going to grow that area, who's going to come in and who's going to spend the money in there?
I think it's marketing.
Well, aren't you basically articulating a zero-sum analysis? I mean, what the hospital project is all about basically is shuttering St. Luke's, shuttering St. Elizabeth's, and moving those jobs downtown. It's not about creating new jobs. And those people are not going to move downtown. They're going to get in their cars at the end of the day and go home.
Well, one of the industries that we do have here that is growing, and that is services for the older population. We are growing, and this baby boomer generation is getting older. And the thought is that maybe that could become a retirement center, or who knows what happens there. And that would be new business, because these people they're getting older. They're moving out of the suburbs, and they're moving into facilities.
I agree with you if you have organic development.
Right.
If you build a big mega structure like this with a couple of eyesore parking garages, which, by the way, will be obsolete in another 10 or 20 years, that's not going to attract baby boomers to live downtown.
I got to leave it at that. I hate to do it, but I am out of time, and Manaski's giving me the look. Let's do this again. Joseph Peter Drennan, thank you so much. And
Thanks,
Brett,
Bill.
I appreciate it.
All right.
We will do it again. We'll continue this.